Norway, land of the midnight sun, awe-inspiring fjords, majestic mountains, unforgettable glaciers, and exceptional wildlife. A trip to Norway is a bucket list item and a truly unforgettable experience. In this travel documentary, I am taking you with me on a grand road trip that will take you from the most southern point of the country all the way to the iconic Nordkapp, the most northern point of continental Europe. This video is the first of a 6-part documentary series in which I will cover all the famous places in Norway that should be on any Norway road trip itinerary. And I will take you to some of the amazing lesser known sites the country has to offer. In this video, I will cover the magical south of the country with its rugged nature, fascinating cities, and mesmerizing coastline. So let's get started. Join me on my grand Norwegian road trip. My tour started in Oslo, Norway's bustling capital. Oslo and its periphery are home to the vast majority of Norway's population. Approximately the size of Germany or New Mexico, only about 5.4 million people live in Norway. Of those, 1.5 million people live in and around Oslo. And while the city is often somewhat passed by in many travel itineraries, it's a fascinating place that boasts sophisticated modern architecture, historical castles and palaces, famous museums, and beautiful parks. I particularly enjoyed walking up on the roof of the opera, seeing the Scream by Edvard Munch with my own eyes, getting inspired by all the good food at the unique and creative food menu, the Vippa, strolling through the Akershus fortress, and walking up to the entrance of the royal palace. And my favorite place in Oslo was the Frognerparken, that features over 200 monumental sculptures of Gustav Vigeland, a famous Norwegian artist and designer of the Nobel Prize medal. In my view, the park alone is worth a visit of Oslo. But I had a long journey ahead of me, and thus I had to say goodbye to Norway's capital to head to my next destination, going west into the mountains of the famous Telemark skiing region. My first stop was the historical Heddal Stave church, a monumental wooden cathedral from the 13th century and the largest stave church in the country. The church looks spectacular from the outside, but its interior also features several historical artifacts that date back all the way to the Middle Ages. Interestingly, the church gets its dark, blackish appearance from a regular treatment with a coat of tar, according to a centuries-old procedure that helps to seal and preserve the wood against the elements. I continued my journey, turning south further into the Telemark Mountains, passing the Norsjø Lake, at which end I visited a rather unique spectacle in Norway, the passing of ships up and down the Canal. The historical canal features 4 steps of a loch that is picturesquely embedded in a lush green mountainous and rocky landscape. I walked along the canal and watched the lock operators work the hand-operated technology as boats are being maneuvered up and down the stairs of the lock, and thereby overcoming 10 meters of elevation. There are several canals in the region, but this might be the most beautiful one. Forged into the rock with dynamite in the mid-19th century. In the summer months, visitors can take boat tours on historical steamboats up the canals, starting from Skien, a pretty local town nearby. The next morning, I continued my journey to one of the most picturesque fishing towns in southern Norway, Langesund. In the 1800s, Langesund was one of the most important shipping towns in Norway, and today it is one of the most celebrated summer towns in the country because of the large number of sunny days, a rare commodity in Scandinavia. I spent some quiet moments down at the Lomesanden Beach, watching the ducks and fishing boats passing by. Just across from the beach, one can see the shores of Langoya Island. Boats take visitors to the island, from where they can head all the way to the southern tip of Langoya, where the iconic Languitangen lighthouse has helped sailors and mariners to navigate the outer shores of the wide Oslo fjord for 2 centuries. But Langesund had more historical treasures in store for me. At the end of a walk through a pristinely kept residential street, I reached the outer fortifications of an old coastal fortress on the extreme end of the Langesund Peninsula. The Langesund Stangen Fort was established during the Second World War by Nazi Germany and later used by the Norwegian Coastal Artillery and Home Guard until 1993. The remains of the bunkers and underground tunnels are still visible today, and one can easily see how this location must have been of strategic importance during the Second World War. Today it's a great place for a walk through the lush green forest, following a picnic with a spectacular view. Following the coastal road further south, I eventually arrived in Kristiansand, a bustling seaside resort town and Norway's 5th largest city. Kristiansand is strategically located on the Skagerrak and was militarily and geopolitically of high importance in the region. It served as a military stronghold for centuries, first as Harald Fairhair's royal residence, then as a Danish-Norwegian fortress, and later as a garrison town. Today, Kristiansand is a gateway to and from the European continent with a daily ferry service to Denmark. The harbour is also a popular stopover for cruise ships from around the world. When I was there, not only 1, but 2 cruise ships anchored in the harbour, surely heavily supporting the local economy. Perhaps the best view can be gotten from the small but nevertheless strategically positioned Kristiansholm fortress, which dates back to 1672 and took center stage in a historic battle against the English fleet in 1807 during the Napoleonic Wars. The The star of this coastal town may however be the bustling city beach that is framed by a boardwalk that is much frequented by locals and visitors alike. Noteworthy is also the ultra-modern Kilden Performing Arts Centre, one of the most scenic concert houses in Europe and known for its excellent acoustics. I continued my travels to one of the many major highlights of my Norway road trip and the official starting point of my endeavour to the Nordkapp. My destination for the day was Kap Lindesnes, officially the most southern point of Norway. From here, the fastest route within Norway to the North Cape would be 2,518 kilometers, which would take about 37 hours non-stop driving. It's amazing to be at the southernmost part of Norway, and from here my trip will be going all the way to the Nordkapp. So here I was, the heavy winds of the South Cape at the Lindesnes Fyr beating in my face, standing at the location of Norway's oldest lighthouse, where in 1656 the first beacon fire was lit. The current lighthouse was built in the early 1900s, but lighthouses have been continuously operating here since 1725. I was stunned by the excellent exhibition that is brimmed with historical facts about the location, its role in the Second World War, and the genesis of the lighthouse buildings. It was quite an experience to go up the steep stairs of the tower and experience the storm-like winds from the small viewing platform below the lantern. The views from here are stunning, offering a 360-degree panorama of the cliffs above the rugged sea below. The coastal region around Lindesnes is characterized by its pristine scenery. Deep fjords make way for forests and pristine lakes. Fine sandy beaches line the shores and gentle hills offer grand vistas over the cliffs and bays of Norway's south. I strolled through the dunes of Lomesanden Beach near Farsund and marveled at my first major fjord views at the shores of the spectacular Fjorden. This should only give me a taste of the many breathtaking sights that were awaiting me on my journey north. passed the historical lodgings of Helleren that were built right below a dangerously looming rock formation. The two old houses at the far end of Fjord were built in the early 19th century and abandoned in the 1920s, shortly after the first road was opened. Being 200 years old, they still are an impressive sight and in pristine condition, likely also due to their sheltered location, which protected them from the elements. Heller means rock shelter in Norwegian, and this overhanging rock measures 60 meters, making it one of the largest in Norway. The two remaining cabins were part of a larger settlement and are preserved as they once were, as houses of poor families living off fishing, farming and sheep herding. One of the houses can still be visited from the inside. The scenery around the cliffs feels almost a bit surreal, as the somewhat neglected landscape is marked by some more recent industrial activity, providing a fertile ground for photographers and videographers alike. I continued my journey passing the rugged mountain behind Helleren, making my way back to the coastal road in northwestern direction towards Stavanger. The drive along the shore is nothing short of spectacular, and I found myself stopping multiple times to take pictures and just soaking in the picturesque views of the ocean, the coastal farms, old churches, cemeteries and lighthouses. I hiked to the imposing shipwreck of the refrigerating ship Norfrost, which stranded after a machine room explosion during a storm in 1967 near Mudland Harbor, south of Vigrestad. Naturally, the remains are in poor condition by now, but they still make for great pictures, and I'm always fascinated by the somewhat eerie atmospheres those silent reminders of past tragedies provide. Luckily, there were no casualties on the Norfrost, and the entire crew was saved. I also enjoyed the historical Gamle Varhaug with its iconic small chapel and the historical cemetery. This is the location of a church that is believed to have been raised in the 1200s on top of a pagan cult place. But the tiny chapel that can be seen today was only raised in 1951, with the bells dating back to 1791. The chapel in this very romantic location is mostly used for weddings nowadays, something the many sheep here don't seem to take much note of. If you are a fan of lighthouses, another noteworthy lighthouse is the one in Obrestad, a few minutes' drive further up north. The picturesque Obrestad Fyr was built in 1873 and is overlooking the southwestern coastline that harmoniously blends into the lush green meadows with grazing cows and sheep. My next stop was the city of Stavanger, the fourth largest city in Norway and the undisputed capital of Norway's oil industry. Many Norway visitors use Stavanger as the base to explore the many stunning fjords, jaw-dropping landscapes, world-famous hiking trails and white sandy beaches in this part of the country, which were of course part of my journey as well. And not only for these reasons, the city is also a popular cruise ship port, and the huge cruise ships that anchor here dwarf everything else in the city. But Stavanger is also full of history. Being one of the oldest cities in Norway, Stavanger was a center of power during the Viking Age and an important harbor throughout the last centuries. I particularly enjoyed strolling through the picturesque old town, the Gamle Stavanger, with the historical white wooden houses that used to be the homes of workers in the sardine canning industry. The narrow cobblestone streets and old-fashioned iron lanterns, the colorful vibrant flowers and pristinely kept little gardens soothe the eyes and make for a special atmosphere that is not to be missed. I also loved walking along the harbor with its many busy cafes, full of people and music, marveling at the vibrant street art, exploring the exquisite shopping streets and alleys, cool bars and cultural venues, and heading up Valberg Hill to the majestic Valberg Tower, the 19th century watchtower that was home to a watchman up to the 1920s. I visited Breivatnet, the picturesque central lake that is home to numerous seagulls and swans that are everything but shy when it comes to approaching humans. Stavanger is also home to many museums, the most famous being the Petroleum Museum, housed in an impressive building over the water that is reminiscent of an oil rig platform. In the evening, I visited two special places in the periphery of Stavanger. The first was Sverdifjell, the swords and rock monument which stands on historical grounds in Havsfjord. The three swords that are planted into solid rock symbolize peace, unity and freedom, and commemorate the important historical battle of Hafrsfjord in 1872 when Viking King Harald Fairhair united Norway under one crown. My last destination of the day in Stavanger was the Brudlenke Monument, a moving memorial site for a tragedy that occurred on the oil platform Alexander Kielland in 1980. Back then, 123 oil workers died when the oil rig, named after a Norwegian writer, capsized during a heavy storm in the North Sea. The statue in the form of a broken chain is about 4 meters high and quite powerful. The dramatic location of the rocks of the cliffs certainly add to the allure of the place. The site is not commercialized, and several pathways around the coastline allow for magnificent walking tours that can go all the way to Stavanger or the Three Swords Monument. The visit to this beautiful monument marked the end of yet another truly memorable day in Norway, but I had no idea what would await me the next day.